start streaming. So I don't know if the thing is up
Let me
yet.
find you. Let me boost your algorithmic juices by going to my. Where the fuck are you in my fucking subscriptions? What's your name, George?
It's
It's
GeorgeIsLost,
George.
isn't it?
Yeah, there it is. Found it.
You saying you couldn't find him?
Listen, I'm just subscribed to just so many infinite. Just shut the fuck up, okay? Listen, I had some trouble. We don't need to talk about it.
Right, I'm just gonna tweet out.
I'm very busy eating a banana. I couldn't possibly listen to that sentence.
Like, you don't. Yeah, see? Listen, even Kibo's confused. His name is George Not Found.
Shut up, man. I thought of this name before I knew who George Not Found was. Okay, it's not my fault.
It's beside the point,
But
George.
so at some point you then found him.
Nah, it was these guys who told me about him, and I was like, oh shit.
Yeah. George, apparently I'm loud and you're a little quiet. You gotta fix that.
Okay, sure. One sec. It's probably also the fact that I'm leaning away from my mic to type. That's also probably not helping.
That's fair.
Just...
Meanwhile, let me actually turn you up as well. Make sure all is as it should be.
I've got here with me a Lotus Biscoff milk chocolate bar, and it's one of the most delicious things I've ever tasted.
Ah, sounds really good, to be fair. Alright, I've tweeted out. Right, let's tinker with these audio settings. Right, I've turned you guys up, so that should hopefully help.
Perfect.
This seems like a perfect time to abuse my power and turn my mic all the way up as well, and then get really close to it.
Oh yeah, just complete. Just if you're not the only thing that everyone can hear, then I will be very disappointed. Just honestly, I could use the wake up call. So just
not only turn my mic all the way up, get really close to it, and then turn on reverb.
Oh god.
Be super echoey throughout the whole stream.
Just
alright, let's maybe give it a couple minutes, see if anyone else comes in. They never usually do. The viewers always come from after the fact, from when the stream's uploaded, but we'll give it a little while anyway, see what happens.
Right.
Let's give it a couple minutes. I'm still quiet, am I? Okay, that's strange.
Speak up, George.
Maybe if I just literally just get closer to my shit.
If you just gargle it, just like deep throat the microphone.
Well, like on OBS, my audio's like whenever I speak, it's in the yellow, so I don't think it'd be too quiet. I'm not sure what's going on there.
Matt, how does he sound in comparison to me? Because I'm forced to be like relatively quiet at the moment.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sounds like people calling you quiet are experiencing a skill issue.
You know what?
Yeah, fuck you, Matt.
Just get better at hearing, idiot.
Yeah, it's their fault, not mine.
I mean, to be fair, like George, in OBS, can you like, are we also just comfortably in the yellow?
Yeah, like literally everyone's audios turn up to maximum in OBS. I'm not sure what else I could do.
Then yeah, no skill issue. Let's just roll with it.
Yeah, and Matt, why don't you try turning your audio up, fucker?
I love how it started with like genuinely trying to get like the best like advice from Matt, who's actually watching the stream to find the best audio settings, and just very quickly evolved into, yeah, fuck that guy, right?
Well, Matt, now that you've actually caught up with Rick and Morty, I'm expecting a lot of valuable discussion on your end in the chat. So you better bring it on home in the chat.
Yeah, Matt, you gotta tell us how Rick and Morty is telling us all the deep, dark secrets about the socioeconomic state of the world right now.
Exactly. And there we got 3 concurrent viewers. That's probably about like how much we normally get whenever we do the actual stream. So you know what? Let's just dive right in. Let's just get to it. Alrighty. Welcome everybody to the.
Why not?
I mean, it may be the final Rick and Morty stream. We're also thinking of maybe doing like a summary stream, like afterwards, where we like discuss the season overall and maybe do some episode rankings, stuff like that. But in terms of reviewing the actual episodes, this is the last stream. Sorry that it took a little bit. We were all busy over the Christmas period. Naturally, that's what happens. But Talking about the last episodes now, and we got Jay back again. Let's go.
What if I just didn't say anything in that pause that you left for me?
What if you just didn't say anything from like the moment George started like the actual stream introduction? So it's just like we just have your icon here in the fucking like in this stupid little overlay like at the bottom, like your character is there, your icon is there. It never lights up. It's just us. For all the viewers at home, no, we just brought in another Discord account to just have there.
Everyone in the chat starts gaslighting me, being like, I can't hear George, I can only hear the others. Where's George?
What if I spoke only in haiku?
I mean, you can give it a shot
Don't.
if you wish. If
Don't,
you're willing
please.
if you're willing to commit that hard to a bit, then...
Jay, if you do that, then I will be forced to mentally check if it's a haiku every time, and I literally do not have the mental power to do that right now, so I am begging you, please just talk normal.
I don't know, it seems like more effort than it's worth, but I kind of really want to.
I'll tell you what, we'll have some
worth
normal
it.
discussions, but here and there, like, try slip some haikus in and see if we pick up on them.
I just have to Google how many syllables for a haiku.
It's 575.
Ah, good.
Alrighty, well, I'll be looking out for that. One Foxy.
We watched Avatar enough times.
That's all good, One Foxy. It's going to be re-uploaded right after like it finishes anyway, so no pressure to watch it now. You're all good. Hope you enjoy whatever you're off to go and do.
Probably watching a better stream.
Bro,
There are no better streams.
there's just no need for that, man. It's just mean.
I'm sorry, George. Here's the thing, George. I don't have a filter naturally. I have extra no filter now. I'm literally having a heart attack as we speak.
Yeah, like basically, Sarik's sleep schedule is fucked. So in order to make sure he can make this, he like pumped himself with like 60 cc's full of caffeine, and he's on another plane of reality right now.
Like,
How many fingers am I holding up?
Well, looking at your character that George drew, a single thumb.
No, sorry. You need to have more caffeine until you get it right.
Okay, hang on. Let me just.
God's sake, right? This isn't even going to be the Rick and Morty review stream. This is going to be the stream where Sarik overdoses. It's always happening. That was right.
It's too big of a gulp.
Uh,
I tried to drink as much as possible so it would be funny so you could hear the liquid. It didn't work.
Taking too big a gulp. That problem on many an occasion.
Nice.
Right. Well, while Sarik is dying, I'm just gonna try to introduce things. So yeah, we've watched the final 2 episodes of season 6 of Rick and Morty now, episodes 9 and 10. We've got I can't remember the names off the top of my head, but we've got Knights of the Sun, and we've got Christmas episode where all the character dynamics come to a head. So I'm gonna do what I usually do. It feels like ages since I've done this, even though it really hasn't been that long. I'm just gonna go around the table first and see what we all think. So I'll start with you, Jay, since Sarek is like dying. What did you think of episode 9? How did it go for you?
I really liked it. I thought it was good. Which, like, not top tier, but not mid either. Like in between those two positions, which is very nice for a new episode of Rick and Morty.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's interesting. I honestly did not expect that at all, to be honest. How about you, Zach? Episode 9. What do you think?
Okay, so we're starting with episode 9. Very, very delicious, very funny, and it's a pseudo sequel to what may be one of the best episodes in the series. Although there is a slight continuity error that bothers me.
Really? What's that? Whenever you're ready, take your time.
It's okay. I'm getting it back. I can feel the liquid in my lungs. So I think we saw Morty's continuity get reset through the Roy episode, also known as the best episode of the season, also known as Walkie Talkie Die Hard Motherfucker.
I disagree, but continue.
And then Morty suddenly went back to completely not respecting Rick, despite the fact that he was reset to, okay, Rick, I trust you implicitly, literally, 6 episodes ago?
That was episode 2. So yeah, 7 episodes ago.
7 episodes ago. If it was episode 2, yeah, like it's fucking like beginning of the season. Morty got reset, like almost in like a pseudo Morty's Mind Blowers esque, where like he got all of his distrust of Rick lobotomized out of him, and then he still took the sword, and that's what starts off the big conflict of him not trusting Rick. Morty, that doesn't make sense.
I mean, does it not? I mean, because even like
It really doesn't. Like, you can't have that piece of character development sending Morty backwards and then throw him further forwards than he was where we started. With no, like, trigger for that. Like, there's not enough connective tissue for that to make sense. It's just, he's in position B, then he rolls back to position... Is that... No, plane's flying above. He's in position B, then he rolls back to position A, then the next time we see him, he's in position C. That's bullshit.
Well, like, here's the thing. I think it depends on, like, how much stakes you put into that, though, because, like, sure, like, if we are to take what happened in episode 2 at face value, I guess Morty kind of did have his distrust of Rick erased with those parts of him being left in Roy, but also, like, I don't think that necessarily means he can't develop a new distrust of him, especially, like, you know...
Oh, no, he can.
The season.
He totally can, but it wouldn't be this fast, and we should have seen it more. Like, we haven't really seen a lot of that. Like, more time should have been dedicated. Either A, more time should have been dedicated to showing us that distrust re-emerging and Rick's reaction to that, because that would have been an interesting mini arc, like having him be reset and then very quickly going back to where he was. Or B, just don't end episode 2 with that kind of continuity reset, because all that kind of does is...
This is it. This is where he keels over, and then you and me, Jay, got to handle the rest of the stream.
So, well, funny you should say that. I trailed off because Jay sent a message that you might want to read.
Oh, one sec. Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
So if I keeled over, which I'm not, you'd have to run this solo.
Alright, okay, don't worry, Jay's got to be MIA for like 5 minutes. That's cool. That's cool.
It's okay, right? Let me power through the rest of this, because they should have, if they knew that they were gonna give us this beautiful episode. By the way, the Sun Knights episode was amazing. Like, very funny. Even tested with the sun ladle to make sure it wasn't fake sun. Truly beautiful. It was real sun. Look at those sunproof bones that floated to the top. Absolute specimen of an episode. However, if they knew that they were going to give us this, and the episode that came after it that ties into its plot, then they shouldn't have ended episode 2 the way that they did. That is a point against Walkie Talkie Die Hard Motherfucker. Still the best episode in the season, but it's still a point against Walkie Talkie Die Hard Motherfucker.
I honestly just find it interesting that you were able to get like that much to say out of the episode, because like, here's the thing, like, judging from you guys' reactions, like, I'm gonna talk about what I thought about it for now. Judging by you guys' reactions, I definitely don't like it as much as you two do. For me, it was a funny episode, but I've not really found it all that memorable. There's a lot more episodes from season 6 that stick out, like, way more for me. For me, this one was just kind of an episode with, like, a whatever plot that continues another running issue that I've had with, like, Rick and Morty recently, which, I mean, I'll talk about a little bit in a sec, but, like, an episode with a kind of whatever plot that just kind of had some really funny moments. Like, there were some great gags. I mean, like you said, like the callback to the Vat of Acid episode, and it basically kind of in a way being a sort of spiritual sequel to that was really cool. I did think that was awesome. And again, some really funny moments, and also some really cool guest stars. Like, I didn't realize David Mitchell was in this. That's actually really cool. But I think for me, what like does make the episode like essential and does make it a little bit more than just one that's got a whatever plot but with some funny moments is how it's retroactively changed in episode 10, like how episode 10 gives it more context. Like that for me is what
Yeah.
makes it on its own in isolation. For me, again, it's funny, but pretty much everything else about it is just kind of whatever for me, honestly. Like the Knights of the Sun and the whole solar system and everything, it really doesn't infuse me. And like it runs into a kind of running issue I've had with modern Rick and Morty, which I've talked about before in this series of streams, I'm pretty sure, is that Rick and Morty classically for me always worked best when there was the dissonance between the normal real world and Rick's like ethereal, like super fantastical sci-fi life, and the divide between the two and the contrast between them. Like, you know, the drama originally was rooted in, you know, reality, you know, Morty falling behind at school, the family drama and all that, and then you've got the dissonance between that and Rick's fantastical sci-fi life. Yet in a lot of modern Rick and Morty, the real world has been just as fantastical with all the alien tech the president has and the fact that all this weird shit exists just out in the real world. Like in this episode, the whole thing about there's all these like different races
Immortal
of
Knights
aliens
in the
that,
Sun.
yeah, all these different alien races that live on the sun and the other planets in the solar system that all have their own lore and shit going on. And like it just when the show in this current state keeps leaning into that, where the real world is just as wacky as Rick's sci-fi life, it breaks down the contrast between the two, and for me it doesn't work as well. I don't think that's when Rick and Morty is at its best, but the thing is, it's become such a mainstay of the show in its current state that I'm kind of just accepting defeat on that at this point. I realize that aspect is just kind of here to stay now, really.
Well, here's the thing, like now that all of the important characters are in on Rick's shenanigans, there's not really much reason to keep the world normal, because they're not like the main characters have already changed too much to be the normal characters. Like Jerry will never ever prioritize getting 2 strokes off his golf game over literally anything else ever again.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I think, you know, you can only maintain characters living normal lives as sci-fi stuff also goes on, you know, next to them for so long before the sci-fi stuff pollutes their actual lives. And at some point, you're going to have to reach a point of these characters are living a sci-fi life now. And that's just got to be the natural evolution of the show. And hopefully you can just make it so that both of those eras are good eras of the show.
Yeah.
I
'Cause,
don't
like-
I don't disagree with that, but like I think my response to that would be, I think the much better solution would be to actually start bringing the whole family in on the sci-fi life more, as opposed to just making the whole normal world wacky. And I mean, we've seen that done quite well. Like a lot of the first half of season 6, even beyond that, feels less like Rick and Morty and more just like the Smith family. We've brought that up in previous streams. I feel like the much more effective strategy would be to start incorporating the whole family in on these adventures, and maybe like, you know, you could still maintain the world being normal, but maybe some of that stuff is starting to bleed over slightly, and the family have to start kind of trying to like keep it all secret and prevent it from bleeding out into the main world, as opposed to just the main world has always just been super wacky anyway. I don't know. For me, I do see what you're saying, but for me, it just makes Rick and Morty as a concept a lot less effective for me personally.
It does convolute the formula a little bit, but once again, like when all of these characters are like fully in on the joke, then like when everyone is in on how big the universe is, these characters just aren't like, it's gonna hit different. Like Summer getting a job with someone who happens to be the devil, Summer's not going to be like, you know what, I don't care that you're the devil. Summer's instead going to be like, you're the devil? Pff, yeah, cool, I don't care. Hire me, bitch. Like, it's not going to be this big character arc, because Summer is not that character anymore. And, like, no one in the Smith family is, like, equipped to deal and engage with the world in the same way that they did previously. And while you can have an interesting story with that and still keep the world semi-normal, you also have to keep in mind, this is a planet that's been invaded like twice over.
Oh yeah, of course. Like
Like-
I'm not gonna deny that. Like, I'm not gonna deny that to an extent it has been around from the beginning. I mean, you mentioned the devil literally just kind of showing up in season 1. Like, yeah, I won't deny it's been somewhat there from the beginning, but like I feel like as a consequence of this, we've ended up with episodes like, you know, season 5's fucking Turkey episode, which I know has its defenders, but I do just think is
I'm not a
straight
defender.
ass for that reason.
Yeah.
For, like that reason.
Yeah, it's
But, like-
it's just the turkey episode. Get out of here.
Honestly, I wish they'd lent more into it, where they'd gone. They did more world building and character development just based on the fact that like Earth has been invaded now. I'd like to see Mr. Goldenfold being a radically different character to who, maybe not radically, but you know, existing now in a post-alien invasion Earth.
I'd like to see Mr. Goldenfold just attack Morty on sight.
Yeah.
He gets some protagonist energy. He's like, guys, I figured it out. If we kill this boy, it'll all stop.
That would be great. I'd love to see that be like the resolution to Mr. Goldenfold's character, and then like they could have an episode where they fight Mr. Goldenfold and he's killed. That would be perfect.
But like he puts up a powerful fight.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
bear in
exactly.
mind, Mr. Goldenfold's the one who kicked those bugs off the planet. He's the one who led the rebellion. Goldenfold is a fucking badass.
I would love to see Goldenfold be like a series finale villain.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. I'd love that actually. You do bring
I
up
can't
a,
wait
Equivalent
more about that
Hercule
with like Rick
Satan
Prime.
destroying the universe.
you do bring up a really good point about the fact that the Earth like literally has been invaded like multiple times now, like twice. So like it does make sense that this stuff would start spilling over, especially since it was literally occupied by the Federation for as long as it was. But that like again, that you are correct about that, but that also isn't the approach that they've taken. The approach they've taken is just it kind of always was like that now. Like, you've got the president with this whole Turkey thing that's been going on for ages with this whole ancient race of, like, aliens and pilgrims, and you've got these races that live on every planet in the solar system, and, like, again, I'm not gonna, like, I don't want to dwell on it too much, because I don't want, like, my entire dislike or like for an episode to hinge on that, because it doesn't at all. It's more just, like, a gripe that I have. Like, the only reason, like, why the episode feels the way it does, like, for me, is just because, like, I just didn't find the plot all that memorable in comparison to a lot of stuff in the other season 6 episode, nor really much of the character beats. Again, that's mainly supplemented by what happens in episode 10. For me, it's just kind of an episode with a kind of whatever plot that isn't all that memorable, but with some really funny moments and cool guest stars. That's kind of all it really is for me, honestly.
I fundamentally disagree with everything you've just said.
That's fine. That's cool. That's what
Okay,
we're for.
okay.
We're here to discuss.
Me and Jay discussed before. I will moderate this time. Jay, rip him a new one.
For the first thing about the president always having had like alien tech and stuff. I think that's fundamentally fine. I really like the idea of Rick having all of this crazy alien tech because he knows stuff, and like, where else is gonna have knowledge of crazy sci-fi shit that goes on in the world? Probably like some secret government agency, right?
Yeah.
And I'm happy with the president having access to that. Maybe there being like people who live on every planet in the solar system is a little silly and far, but in terms of like the president having always had like paranormal shit going on, that's something I actively like. That's something that's like, it makes sense to me. I like the idea that something that can rival Rick in his understanding of how the world is actually kind of fucking crazy is like the entirety of just like the full power of America rivals Rick. I kind of like that, and that's sort of what the season 3 finale is about. And I really enjoy that episode.
Well, like,
And then,
sorry, go ahead.
well, I'm about to bring up the other thing about episode 9 of series 6 specifically. So you go ahead in this one.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, the thing is, I don't even necessarily like disagree with you all that much. Like, I don't even necessarily think you're wrong or anything. It's just more like, for me personally, the Rick and Morty formula is far more effective and benefits from it a lot more when there is that dissonance between the two things. But I also can acknowledge that, like, yeah, with how the characters have changed and like the stuff that has happened in universe, it doesn't make like no sense or anything. It's just I do feel like it goes a little bit too far with what it's willing to plant as like, yeah, this has just kind of always been a thing. Like, for me, it's just kind of not as effective for me personally. I do understand what you guys are saying.
That's fair. If I could interject real quick, though, a thought just occurred to me. You said that the turkey episode is a symptom of this problem that you see with Rick and Morty, and I can see that. Seeing an episode like that, I would also be looking for something to blame. But hear me out. This fundamental aspect of Rick and Morty that you've pointed out is also what gave us Analyze Piss.
Nah, that is also true. Although I will say in response to that the vast majority of all those heroes, in fact all of them, I'm pretty sure, they were aliens. They lived on other planets.
They lived on Earth, though. They lived on Earth. The Piss guy lived on Earth. Did he?
No, Pissmaster didn't live on Earth. He had his own planet. Don't you remember, like, when Rick goes to his house and like his daughter shows up to the door? Like, that was an alien planet. That wasn't Earth.
Really? Oh no, you're right. I was thinking of like the podcast, but no, the podcast was intergalactic. That's my B.
I love hearing about Piss. I analyze Piss when I haven't seen it. This conversation is amazing.
You haven't seen Analyze?
It is.
I would like to see Analyze Piss, but I haven't seen it.
And just cut the stream.
Hearing
gotta catch them up.
Hearing the words "the Piss Master" just drops into conversation. Like, everyone here knows what it is. It's like, yeah, I'm enjoying this.
It's the best episode of the season.
The thing is, Jay, like, we were so skeptical going into it because of that name. We were certain it would be another sperm episode, but unironically, it is a new, like, modern, like, classic episode of the show. We unironically think it's great. It really is.
I'm really glad. I really want to watch Analyze Piss.
If you want, we can after we wrap the stream up. We could.
Oh yeah, I'd love to.
Good. It's so fucking good.
But yeah, sorry.
Okay,
what were you gonna say?
So the other gripe that I have with everything you've just said, George.
Oh God.
That is that. Well, personally, I didn't find the episode story to be like that unmemorable as you did.
That's fine.
For me, it represents sort of a deconstruction of a pretty common trope, which is what I think Rick and Morty does best. Rick and Morty is at its best when it considers the implications of things that other sci-fi does a lot, and like just sort of hand waves or whatever, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the best episodes focus on a small aspect, or what would normally be a small aspect of like a sci-fi premise, and then blows it like blows it up into like the main plot of the episode. Something that would often be overlooked in other stories. And that's absolutely what this one does, and it like takes the piss of a lot of sci-fi stories in a way that I really enjoy, which is newcomers to like some culture they've never heard of before rock up, think that they know better, and make some changes, try and like sort some stuff out, and radically destabilize fucking everything. It's such a It feels like such a natural story for Rick and Morty to tell. Morty shows up, is like, hey, this society kind of sucks, let's fix it. And then just like the entire solar system instantly goes to war because he didn't really understand the implications of any of his actions.
Morty just wanted
I think it's
leave him alone, which is so fucking stupid because all he had were a bunch of servants. Like,
I guess
at the end of that, it was an absolute win.
I guess to be blunt, I guess I just didn't pick up on that aspect. The aspect that I more picked up on and latched onto, and that I unironically do enjoy, and if anything I wish they had gone further with, was the deconstruction of the aspect of tradition and religion, and the fact that a lot of it is all for no reason and serves no real purpose. That's the aspect that, if anything, I latched onto and feel like they should have done a lot more with. But I do see that. I guess what you said. I guess I'm just not as integrated, I suppose.
It's doing both. It's really interesting, I think, because it's saying it's got this whole thing about how religion and tradition serve no practical purpose, but then points out that there are like entire societies built around them, and if you remove them, those societies are at liberty to just crumble. It has some really interesting commentary in it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree. I do agree. I do think that aspect was probably my favorite part about it. How well handled that was, and also the fact that we dropped a dope Pink Floyd track in there. I'm always here for that. I'm always living for that.
I mean, the aspects that we're talking about, though, the aspects that both of us are talking about play off of each other really well, and acting as two sides of the same coin.
Again,
like you could take all of that a step further though, because well, what if just almost but never quite ODing on heroin is equally as valid as keeping balance in the universe? I mean, like, because here's the thing, theoretically speaking, those knights can do whatever the fuck they want. They like theoretically they don't owe the universe anything, especially if like the whole point of their actual like mission is bullshit. And if we're talking like if we were going to delve into the nihilism of Rick and Morty, it's theoretically just entirely on the rest of the galaxy, not the galaxy, the rest of the solar system to figure it out for themselves and come out of the war ideally with some kind of resolution, because very, very obviously the Knights are a fragile and temporary solution to a huge fucking problem. And like Morty removes that solution, and that kind of says like, oh yeah, you know, this is you fucked up, you gotta put it back.
That's one aspect I can actually really appreciate. Actually,
that's
I'll let you finish your thought. But
yeah, like that's just the easy answer. Like the easy answer is put it back, but the quote unquote right answer is these Knights don't owe you motherfuckers anything. They weren't even protecting anything.
Exactly, yeah. That's what I was going to say. The aspect that I do really appreciate is, you know, the Knights have this whole tradition of like, you know, the planets don't actually orbit the sun. What they orbit is the scepter. The scepter is the most powerful thing. And even though Morty is correct that the scepter is literally just a symbol, holds no real power, the planets are obviously just orbiting the sun because science. Morty does remove the scepter, but then everything just goes to shit anyway. Like, if anything, the prophecy kind of comes true. It was self-fulfilling in that aspect, and that's something that I do appreciate. I think was really cool.
Like, it's actually it's a real system with real logic behind it, and like actual effort went into the metaphor, which we can all appreciate.
Not for the
and it does
genuine
believe, but like it's true.
Like, it's a genuinely valuable deconstruction, in my opinion. Like from an atheist perspective of the value of religions, which and you know, with no real comment on what, or no like particular comment on what aspects of that value are like good and bad, just like sort of what they do, what they're sort of for.
Right.
I genuinely really like this episode on like basically, you know what, I'm just going up in my estimations as we're talking about it as well, like all the stuff that you can read into it. It's genuinely like, I think it would this story would be at home in like series 3.
Yeah, I do feel you. Like, now that you're like explaining more stuff to me, I am kind of waking like, you know what? Yeah, no, that is true. That is something that's really effective. I think just when I say it's just not super memorable for me, I guess that is again just like, it sounds like a little bit of a cop out, but it is just more of a subjective thing in a sense that there are just other episodes in the season that I find a lot more memorable. I guess my issue is I'm looking at the plot a little bit too like at face value and not reading into it super much, like as much as I probably should, to really grasp like, you know, what you're saying about how effective the commentary is. Like, I'm more just thinking about some of the other plots we've had, you know, like episode 1, I'm thinking about like you know, the fortune cookie stuff and like a whole aspect of controlling fate, and I'm thinking about Night Family and the aspects of, you know, the moral implications of the Night People and all this other stuff, and thinking about Analyze Piss, and I guess I'm just looking at the plot a little bit to face value, and in that sense it's just not as memorable for me as some of the other stuff. But like, what you're saying is absolutely true, and you are like opening my eyes to more aspects about the episode that are genuinely good. It's like, because Josh said in the chat that like he liked it. Here's the thing, I did too. I did like the episode. I'm not saying I disliked it. I think the main thing about it that stuck out for me and what I do enjoy about it was the humor. It was one of the funnier episodes this season, I think.
Yeah, it was really funny.
It was just really fucking funny. All right, time to cut your penises off.
Yeah.
Like it It just works. It doesn't get any better than that.
And the fact that we got a bunch of cool guest stars like David Mitchell, which is really cool. And the end credits said Jack Black. I didn't pick up on who he was. Where was Jack Black in the episode? Did any of you guys recognize his voice?
I didn't recognize his voice. I'm gonna Google it.
Jack Black just is like Jack Black is just in credits of everything. Like Jack Black he doesn't exist, but he is always. He always is.
He plays the head. He plays like the head Venus character.
Oh, that was him. Oh, that's cool.
He plays the fucking goth.
He plays not Loki?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's awesome.
Cool.
That's really cool.
Okay, let's at least hear them out.
The first image of him that comes up is him being choked.
Okay, yeah, that is.
It's appropriate.
That is awesome. All right, what other things did stuck out about this episode for you guys that you also want to touch on? Because not gonna lie, I think I've exhausted everything I wanted to say about it, and I feel kind of ashamed of that because I definitely didn't get as much out of it as you guys did, and I feel like I've kind of been left behind on this one. You guys definitely got a lot more out of it than I did.
The foreshadowing for the next episode we're going to talk about was done really, really well.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And even like the foreshadowing for the payoff of this episode for like the vat of acid payoff was also done really well because it was thematically appropriate. And then they did it. Except he had Morty's consent when they did it this time, which was also thematically appropriate.
Yeah.
Which is also thematically tragic because of the truth about Rick. It all works. Like, the math is mathing.
The callback was so well. The callback was just explained the perfect amount. It's a tricky balance to strike when you're doing a reference to a previous episode that maybe not even all the people watching this one have even seen. You know, you've got to remember, like, there are casual viewers who are going to catch random episodes of Rick and Morty on TV. I feel it's a really easy trap to fall into of over-explaining things like this.
Yeah.
But honestly, for people who don't get it, it's just going to be, oh, I guess I don't get this, and then they're going to move on. But like, I guess there's something I'm missing, but Rick and Morty survived, I guess.
Yeah, that's one thing I was actually thinking about, like, because you guys are right. Everything about the callback to the Vat of Acid episode and the fact that in a way it is kind of a spiritual successor is really awesome, and it was really well done. But it is also kind of a shame that because it hinges on like how they escape from the situation. And because of that, if you haven't seen the Vat of Acid episode and aren't familiar with it, you're kind of just going to be like, I mean, like you said, Jay, like, oh, well, they survived, I guess. And it's going to go anywhere, which is kind of a shame.
True, but it doesn't do it in a way where like the viewer is left lost, because in explaining what the Sun people thought happened, it tells us what happened. It's like, we even made sure it wasn't any fake sun using a ladle. It's like, okay, so obviously it was fake sun. We don't know why or how it was fake sun, but that tells the viewer that it was in fact fake sun. And that's enough information for the viewer to understand the plot. And if the viewer has seen the Vat of Acid episode, which, let's be honest, if you haven't seen the Vat of Acid episode, just what the fuck are you doing with your life? But if the viewer hasn't seen the Vat of Acid episode, they at least have enough to understand the episode they're watching in this moment. Like, they understand why the plot has gone the way it's gone. And that's just enough to move on with the story.
I think there was probably a draft of this script where one of the characters said something like, "But how did you survive? I don't understand." And then like Rick goes, "Well, someone clearly hasn't seen the Vat of Acid episode." And I think that's definitely a weaker draft.
Yeah, like this is the best timeline that we're living in right now.
Well, apart from a lot of the other episodes.
That's beside the point. We're talking about this one. Don't look directly at the other ones.
I guess to round off talking about episode 9. It absolutely was a good episode. There are ones I prefer. It just does a lot of a lot of really good stuff, like you guys mentioned about like deconstructing certain tropes and commentary on stuff like religion and tradition. Really good humor. It's just definitely evident that you guys enjoyed it more than I did. Even though I didn't actively dislike it, I did like it. It's just not quite... It's not up there in terms of, like, some other Season 6 episodes. I'd say it's about, like, middle to above average for me, I'd say. Not like... as
to
in,
be
like,
fair.
Not as in it was, like, a middling to above average episode. I'm talking about, like, in the season in general, not in the whole show.
To be fair, you have to have a very high IQ to understand the purpose of religion within the scepter of episode 9 of season 6 of Rick and Morty.
Hey, I do get it. I do get it. We established that. I do understand.
Yeah. You're very big brains, George.
I am.
I think
so
that it would be like up to standard for like I think if it was in like series 3 or even 2, it wouldn't be subpar. It would be like up to standard. I think it's a good episode. Not necessarily S tier, but like a solid A tier.
This episode is up to Pollo standards.
That's actually really interesting. I did not expect, I mean, especially you, Jay, I did not expect you to like this episode that much. I can't lie, but like that's really awesome. That's really cool.
The more that I discuss it as well in this call, the more I realize, yeah, I really like it.
It gets better the more you think about it.
It does, which is nice.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Right, is there anything else you guys want to say about this one before we move on to the finale?
It was in fact fake sun, but they didn't know that, and that's why this episode is a 10 out of 10.
I liked that David Mitchell was in it.
Oh, always.
It made me happy when I recognized his voice.
I genuinely feel so guilty that I didn't on first watch, but now that I know that he's there, that is amazing.
I don't necessarily feel guilty, but I do feel left out, with me just not really being familiar with David Mitchell.
Genuinely, go on YouTube after this and search David Mitchell best rants. I think that's the best content you're going to get out of
best rants. I just looked up best of, but I will switch to best rants now.
All right, let's see what comes up.
Yeah. And also watch Peep Show, like maybe with
point.
I think you really enjoy it.
He's one of those comedians who's both great just like speaking on the fly and great at like scripting characters and stuff and acting. So yeah, he's got I personally value like just him going on a fucking rant more than anything else that he does, but like it's all good.
Ah, okay.
He's also quite funny on Will I Lie to You. I don't think that'd be as good without him either. No way.
Yeah, that's the first result for David Mitchell best rants is an hour-long compilation of his rants from Would I Lie to You.
An hour and 14 minutes. That's it, right?
Yeah, that's the one.
All right, it's ready. I will get back to that in good time.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Awesome. Alrighty, and then that means we're on to season 10. Episode 10 of season 6. Last episode of the season. Once again, I'm gonna go around the table. Start with Sarek this time. What did you think of the finale, Sarek? What did you think of episode 10?
Okay, finale. Relationship between Morty and the President, at least in the first half, very wholesome. Everything regarding what the President supposedly thinks about Star Wars, not consistent at all, and maybe that's the point, maybe the big-brained underlying message of the entire character arc of the President is that Star Wars fans don't actually know what they want. If so, good on the show. If not, what the fuck?
Interesting. What about you, Joe?
Look, I think the President's Star Wars commentary felt a little closer to actually being common. It felt like it was trying to be making fun of the fans, but it got quite close to taking shots at the actual shows they're making without realizing. Like, the fucking robot with lightsabers for eyes isn't it. That feels like they're making fun of Book of Boba Fett, not the fans. Like, that's just like, how a parody should just be like one step above something that they would actually do, so that you can laugh at. That is in the vein of stupid decision they would make, but exaggerated.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I felt like they were making fun of. But they were positioning it as they were making fun of Star Wars fans, and I feel like they've not seen Book of Boba Fett.
Well, that here's the thing. That's how I interpreted it the first time, because and I haven't seen the sequels, but a common critique I've heard about the sequels is that the lightsaber has like become less lightsaber. And to anyone who's actually seen the sequels, maybe you can corroborate this, but like the lightsaber, like that technology is just used in a bunch of other weapons, and that's something that's criticized a lot. So I thought that was the point, but also if the president is supposed to be maybe the punchline, maybe the underlying message is that like the fans don't like this about what we have currently, but they would make like the exact same mistakes. I don't know. Like I haven't seen the sequels. I should watch the sequels.
If I may cut in real quick, I just want to say I thought as an episode it was all right, but I don't think it functioned amazingly as a finale. I thought maybe as a finale it was just kind of serviceable. But one thing I want to highlight is the fact that like there is an actual like, you know, plot going on here in this episode, and actual character beats that are important. But like I think the fact that the first thing we've latched onto here is the Star Wars stuff speaks volumes. And because I'm not super integrated in Star Wars, I'm gonna have to leave that one with you guys. You're clearly way more integrated with me. But I just want to say, like, as an outsider looking in, and someone who's just like a Rick and Morty fan watching this finale, I don't know if you guys will agree with me on this. Maybe not. But the Star Wars stuff, like, I'm not going to say it's something that doesn't belong in an episode of Rick and Morty. Like, that's perfectly fine. But it didn't feel like it belonged here. It felt way too at odds with what the rest of the episode was trying to do. It felt really out of place, really crowbarred in. And, like, I don't necessarily think it's bad commentary or anything. Maybe because I'm not educated enough to know if it is or not. But I'm just kind of watching it like, why is it here? It feels really strange. And, I mean, judging by from what you guys said, the commentary didn't even land all that well. So again, I'm kind of gonna have to leave that one with you guys because I'm not integrated enough in Star Wars to really comment on it, honestly.
It didn't feel like it was some kind of two steps ahead commentary like a lot of Rick and Morty commentary does. It felt just more like
it felt more like the writers riffing.
Yeah, it felt like just, hey, here's a character who has some opinions about Star Wars. That sometimes I was agreeing with him. Sometimes I was like, that's not quite on the money. Sometimes I was like, I see how someone might have that opinion, but like I don't really. I think it's like an oversimplification or whatever. Like when he called all the shows CGI fests, I'm like, you know, they kind of are, but like it's not really the issue with them. Plus the prequels were CGI fests as well, and I mean, you complain about those as well, but that's not like something that Disney has introduced. And it's like, yeah, the commentary on Star Wars discourse feels like it's a step behind rather than a step ahead.
I just got frustrated because I was never completely sure about what the fuck the president was talking about, because his very first rant was, oh, you know, like it's prequels, you know, like everyone hated the prequels, but they were so much better than what we got later because it got so bad in these sequels. At least I assume.
Well, wasn't he originally saying that, like, kind of say, like, you know, when he sees Morty outside the house when he first confronts him, wasn't he like at first saying about how like Star Wars was always shit? Like, we know that was a ruse, obviously, but like,
yeah, like that's the fucking thing. It's like. Well, it's like, he promised another trilogy and then prequels, and people didn't like them, and then we got something even worse, an even worse trilogy, and then he extended that to be like, but you know, you started with a turd. It's like, started with a turd. Okay, so original trilogy was also bad, but then later on, he's like, okay, so it only started being bad in the first movie, in the third movie of the original trilogy. I fucking, what the. He just hates Star Wars, but he actually loves Star Wars, which I guess is also a mini commentary. Listen,
that's one of those commentaries that's like a step back rather than a step ahead, I think.
It's like there's an alternate timeline where I actually watched all of Star Wars, including the sequels, before we had this stream, and that is the superior timeline to this, because I feel so, like, unequipped for this conversation. Because I have no fucking idea what the president is talking about.
Well, like, was he definitely saying that like Return of the Jedi is where it started to falter? Is that definitely what he was saying?
I think that's what he was saying. A lot of people think that Return of the Jedi is where it started to falter.
I'm 80% sure that's what he was saying, but I'm 10% sure that it was an error in the script.
Nah, I think that was on purpose. I think that like a lot of fans do rate that the Return of the Jedi is the weakest in the original trilogy. Anyway, the episode, I thought it was like
Right, yeah, evil Rick, there's so much here, and we just
Yeah,
latched onto
like
fucking Star Wars.
I liked
the
it.
fact that we started with that speaks volumes, because again, it just really felt like it didn't belong. It felt so crowbarred in. You can do an episode about that, that's fine. I just didn't feel like it belonged here.
The episode felt honestly kind of muddled to me. Again, I'm so lost with these characters now. I liked a lot of the individual character interactions, particularly between Morty and the President. But in terms of where like Rick is as a person and Morty's relationship with him, I feel pretty lost. And I just don't really, follow where we even are, where we're at with them.
Slight rough patch. They're kind of cool and a little crazy by the end. That's about as deep as my understanding goes.
When did we last see the President? I don't think we've seen him this season, have we?
I feel like we have one. Oh, maybe no. I don't think
we saw him in
actually.
the dinosaur episode. That's when we last saw him.
Oh yeah.
Right, because Oscars.
Yeah, that's right. And obviously, like, the President trying to ask Rick to get rid of the dinosaurs. But, I mean, he didn't even really do all that much there. There wasn't really anything about, like, the President's relationship with either of them. It was just kind of, like...
Well, we learned that Rick like planted a bunch of robots to make the President do what he wants. That's about the extent of their relationship that we know about.
Yeah, there wasn't really anything significant involving the President since like season 5, which I think it was the sperm episode actually. Before
yeah.
That. God. One thing that's interesting, Jay. I remember you saying you like the season 3 finale with versus the President, don't you?
Yeah, I love that episode.
Which is interesting, because it feels like this episode is kind of trying to be like a spiritual successor to that in a way, where it's like, the President's getting involved with these like shenanigans and there's a little bit of conflict in them, but it's also like the finale. And like, so it's weird, because it feels like it's trying to like be almost a sequel to that, while also at the same time feeling nothing like that. It's really weird as a finale. That's the episode is okay on its own. I don't think it works all that well as the finale, unless, obviously, the main thing you focus on is where Rick and Morty themselves are at. But as a finale...
Hot take, it's not a finale.
It doesn't feel like one, no. It feels
I know.
It feels like a finale only in Rick and Morty themselves as character dynamics, but outside of that, like, no.
Well, funnily enough, I think that like the original original Rick versus the President episode doesn't feel that much like a finale either, and I kind of wish that in some degree, I wish that that Rick and Morty hadn't established a precedent of like big finale episodes, because I would kind of enjoy a world where the finale was just sort of, maybe it changes the status quo a bit, but it's not something big and grandiose.
I disagree. I actually fundamentally disagree with that.
How dare you?
Rick versus the President was objectively a good finale, because if you look at these seasons like really long movies, right? Like if these seasons are really long movies, which is typically in writing how you would appraise a season, season 3 starts with the divorce between Beth and Jerry. Right? So
yeah.
And that is the arc that the entire season is based on, and that arc gets resolved when they get back together as a result, strangely, of what's happening during that fight between Rick and the President. This is a very strange show. In that sense, that finale objectively works as a finale because it resolves what is promised to us in the first episode, which is the opening act. By contrast, this finale that we've just watched gives us an extension of what was promised to us, which was Rick Prime shenanigans. But the focus of the episode isn't on it. We get very little, and just about nothing introduced in that episode is resolved. So if we look at this season as a whole, as one giant movie, it's just not a very good movie.
I agree about season 3, though. I think that the thing is, it resolves the arc, but it doesn't really. And that's why I wish there was less of a precedent of very grandiose finales, because it just resolves an arc that's been going on for a while, but it doesn't do it in some extremely dramatic way. It's just sort of a resolution. And I think that's why a lot of people felt like disappointed by it.
Yeah, but at the very least, it does its job as the end to that story which the season was based on. This finale didn't do none of that.
Because you mentioned like the thing about Rick Prime shenanigans. It wasn't even that. It was just a tease of the Rick Prime shenanigans that were to come. It's just a massive tease in that sense.
Yeah, it was maybe 5% of what we would have needed for the finale to actually feel like a finale. Because as things currently stand, if we're looking at seasons as very long movies, which we logically should, in order for this movie to be a good, fundamentally complete movie, you'd have to count season 6 and then season 7, which isn't out yet, as one season in order for the story to be cohesive. Because what we've got right now just isn't a good story.
You know what's interesting? Season 6 actually echoes Season 3 in a lot of ways. Like, we start, like, you know, we have the premiere, the opening, that, like, continues off from a cliffhanger from the end of last season. The season overall has a strong focus on character development more so than usual. And it ends with this finale that, like, uses, like, a thing with the president to try and round it all off, but is also quite contentious in the terms of, like, you know, you can think whatever you like about the season 3 finale, it doesn't really feel that much like a finale. At least I don't think it does. So I think it's interesting how, like, those parallels to season 3 are there, and I'm wondering if that was deliberate.
Objectively speaking, it is a decent finale, because if we're thinking like just what's necessary, it only needs to deliver on what's set up in the beginning, because everything in the middle of the season, you can argue, is more vulnerable to be described as something that's setting up the next season. The obvious example being Eye Patch Morty being president, right? Like, that obviously wasn't going to be resolved in the same season, so, like, I'm not expecting, like, the Rick Shuri and Morty date, despite the name, to be about President Morty. Fuck, this is a strange show that these are sentences that I'm constructing. But with that said, at the very least, at the bare minimum, season 3 is an open and shut case. It's a story that comes full circle. This is like maybe 40% of a story that we're looking at right now.
Yeah.
And it's a full season. And that's just it's not that thing, pal. That's not good.
Yeah.
That's not a good look.
Like I keep saying, like, if we're talking literally just in terms of where Rick and Morty's own character arc ends off this season, then it is satisfying. But literally everything else tacked onto it is just, I just have absolutely no enthusiasm for. Not that I think it's outright bad, it's also just kind of like, I mean, like you keep saying, it's not an overall satisfying conclusion to the season. It doesn't really close all that much off in terms of everything else we've been given. And we've come to expect that from Rick and Morty at this point. Like, I think we all knew that the finale wasn't going to be a big standoff against Rick Prime. I think we all knew that was going to be, like, next season or the season after. But even so, there was still, like, you know, things that could have been done. And I will say, in fairness, like I said, season 6 has had a big focus on the character development and the character arcs, similarly to season 3. So that's what was going to be the main focus for wrapping stuff up. And, like, to its credit, it was. It's just, I think the episode kind of ends up suffering a loss and ends up not being, like, as entertaining as it could have been. It's interesting because you mentioned, Jay, about the precedent of Rick and Morty finales. Rick and Morty finales, in terms of, like, what they go for, have actually, like, they don't always go for the big bombastic finales. Like, season 1 was just the party on the other planet. Season 2 was obviously the Wedding Squanchers, which is probably the first big finale. Season 3 was obviously Rick, Shuri, and Morty date, which I mean, that one's all over the place. I'm not sure how you classify that one. Season 4 definitely tried to be the big finale with the New Galactic Federation coming back, and season 5 definitely was the big finale with you know, Evil Morty's whole backstory. So it's kind of in and out in terms of whether they want to do big finales or not.
Yeah.
And
this
is definitely,
I feel
again,
like
similar to
every
season 3, where it's kind of in the middle and a little bit muddled.
I think every finale except the first, like the very first season, has been like a big finale. I mean, everything gets destroyed, so Rick turns himself in. Rick, I mean, season three's finale wasn't that big and bombastic, but like it was definitely presented like that in its own weird, like underwhelming way, where he gets in this big brawl with the fucking president.
Oh, and the Minecraft stuff in the episode that was there for some reason.
Listen, not for some reason, because it was funny. It was real funny.
The interesting thing about season 1 actually is the fact that obviously that's the only season with 11 episodes, and episode 10 is one you'd feel like would be more in line with the finale. You know, that's the big Citadel of Ricks episode. That's where we see the Citadel and like all the Ricks and learn how it works for the first time. And then there's an 11th episode tacked on where it's just, oh yeah, we get teleported to another planet and we're just going to have a big fuck off party with these zany characters. I actually really
the 11th episode.
I actually really
honestly,
the way.
It honestly, the 11th episode honestly feels more like a Christmas special that was added onto the season rather than the finale.
Yeah.
The episode we just watched?
No, season 1, episode 11, the party episode.
Yeah.
You know, Aberdolf Linkler, giant testicle monsters.
Because
No,
the
that's fair,
Citadel
yeah.
introduction feels like it would be Series 1's finale.
But then
that's actually a good point, especially with like where the characters stand. It was the most. Yeah, no, I accept that.
Plus
Good take. Good
It's
take.
episode 10, which is always the finale slot. It really feels like they just got an extra episode, and maybe this is what happened. Maybe they just got an extra episode and made it afterwards, and then put it after.
Maybe.
But that's just a theory.
Though it does-
a
though it
TV
does,
show
It
theory.
does lead into season 2, doesn't it? With the whole like freezing and then unfreezing of time. So maybe it was pre-planned, but I mean,
Well, pre-planned. Like you can move on. Like you can tie up a loose end like that to make it lead into the next season. Like they didn't start production on the next season immediately.
no, that's true.
Like they had time to do a course correction, and course corrections like that happen like all the time in media production of any kind, even movies. But like the whole fucking like that idea, because no, Jay, I actually completely agree with that. Just because, especially of how the first Citadel episode ended with like that very like tongue-in-cheek like interaction between Rick and Morty, where it's like, oh, you know, a cocky Morty that can lead to some big problems, be a real issue for everyone, right? Like that feels like something that would cap off a season.
Yeah,
Like, that feels like okay, see you next time. Maybe you'll see something related to this, and then they just have a fucking party and destroy time.
You know what else I think speaks volumes? The fact that, again, we're barely talking about the episode itself. We're more just talking about the context of the episode.
Because
just
the
felt
episode is
muddled
just
by
it's
the
just
episode.
A teaser trailer. Like if you remove the Star Wars shit, it's literally just a teaser trailer.
There was a little moment where I was just like, "Oh, that was just really lazy writing. That was noof. You could have brushed that up better."
Yeah.
Where they had the lightsaber falling vertically, which I can't believe we've not touched on yet. But
Yeah.
you know, digging through the ground, and Morty is like, and then they go to like catch it in the basement, right? And they go all the way down to level -15 to get to it. And they're like, oh, we're too early. Let's go back up to level 10, which first of all isn't even a decision I believe Morty would make. Like, I don't believe he's that impatient to get it. I think he would probably be more. I think he understands.
This is
Like,
really
okay,
dumb.
it's coming. Let's wait for it here, right? Rick literally pointed out a second before. Oh, we're early. Good problem to have. It's like,
Yeah.
how fucking impatient are you, Morty? But then they go back up to level 10, which is like, you know, a pretty manufactured way for him to get there in the first place.
Exactly, yeah.
Then the lightsaber passes through that floor. None of them try to do anything to grab it. They're just like, oh, there it is. Which is like, the whole reason you're fucking here is to grab it. I get that you're now distracted by real Rick, but like, this is still something you care about. Then as soon as it goes through the floor, Rick is like, well, we're too late to get that now.
Even though there were
like-
at least 5 more floors.
Like, yeah,
a
it took.
perfectly working elevator.
No, we see in the elevator there are 23 floors. There are 13 more floors. There are more floors than it's currently dug through, and it took like it looked like you know, a medium length scene of them talking to the real Rick for it to get to floor 10, and there are 13 more floors. But even just like the 5 would do it. But like literally they have like fucking what, like a minute talking to the real Rick they find, and then it digs through the floor, and literally that second Rick is like, well, that's gone too deep now, there's no getting it. What? You guys didn't try with this scene, did you?
No, I feel like they were more focused on like the reveal, and they just really wanted an excuse to have like the fucking the upside down perfectly vertical lightsaber bullshit. To be fair, it's a good joke.
It is good.
It's a good.
You know that's something that like loads of people over the decades have like hypothesized with their friends. Like, what would happen if you dropped a lightsaber perfectly vertical? Would it just go down to the core of the earth? Like, plenty of people have talked about that. Like,
and it pays off in literally the best way at the end of the episode when like the 5 mini lightsabers drop to the bottom of the fucking space station White House, and right before all of them are about to die, the president's just like, perfectly fucking vertical. Like, that was great.
I haven't seen much Star Wars, but unironically, maybe in like a new Star Wars show, that should actually be the plot of an episode of it. Just to like actually have it happen in universe.
Well, here's the thing: it wouldn't fucking happen because the lightsaber. Oh, okay. I feel like I remember saying this when we first watched the episode, George. But that's literally not even how it would happen, because the whole point of a lightsaber or a saber or a sword of any kind is it has a handle, and the handle has a hilt, and the hilt is designed to catch a sword if someone's trying to cut at your hand. And while it's not as big on a lightsaber, the beam from the lightsaber is still coming from inside the handle of the lightsaber, which means that the beam, the superheated part, is smaller than the handle, which means if you dropped a lightsaber perfectly vertical, unless the heat was so powerful that it was expanding out even further than the laser itself has, which would not work if it was solid fucking concrete, it would stop at the hilt of the lightsaber's handle, because that's what the fucking handle is for. That's why swords have handles.
It's so funny hearing you rant while also like trying not to be too loud. Like whisper shouting.
David Mitchell would just let rip.
Listen, I can't listen. Maybe people are awake by now, but I can't take that chance.
You know how like when we were discussing episode 9, we were saying how like the more we talk about it, the better we get. I think it is. I think the more we discuss this one, like the less I like it. Like I did enjoy watching it in the moment. I was entertained by it, but the more we like start to kind of break it down and talk about it, like the less I'm enjoying it as an episode overall. I don't think it's that great, which is such a shame considering it's the finale.
It was at least very funny, and nothing can take that away. But it's not a good finale.
One thing I do want to ask, and I guess this more applies to Sarek than you, Jay, since obviously me and Sarek have seen the full season. What are your thoughts on like where real Rick's character ends up being with like how pissed he was? Because I'm kind of in two minds about it, because like on the one hand, the way Rick explains himself and how he feels does kind of make sense, but I'm also like unsure how to feel about the fact that, you know, it was just Morty calling him boring, is like that of all things is what set him off. But also the fact that
I can explain this.
Over the course of the season, we have seen Rick make genuine progress to try and be a better person. We've seen it quite a lot in these episodes. That feels like a bit of a running theme. So I can buy that like maybe Rick's ego is hurt and he's relapsing, and maybe that's why he's like, I mean, especially with the fact that he's also hunting Rick Prime, his head is all over the place and he's kind of going a little bit mad. But, like, when I try to think about it logistically, again, like, I'm not even necessarily trying to make a point because I don't know how to feel about it. I'm not sure if it tracks or not. I'm not sure how to feel.
I am, and I can tell you, I can walk you through this perfectly, because I was thinking about this as we were watching. So, listen, I'm about to give you all the answers. Here's what happened, right? It did not bother Rick that much. Rick reached the conclusion in that moment at the beginning of the Cut Your Dick Off episode that Morty very clearly did not trust him very much, and his opinion did not mean that much, and he was probably going through a realization kind of similar to what Robot Rick actually communicated to Morty. However, it was that in conjunction with his original reasoning that he gave Morty that he just needed to close himself off and start working on this arch nemesis shit because it was genuinely bothering him. He used that as an excuse to get to work. Now, he was not that, like, he was obviously like, okay, like, goddamn, that was a little harsh, Morty. Fine, here, have this robot and I'll just, like, get to work for a while. It wasn't bothering him that much. He just used it as an excuse to do something that he deems productive given the circumstances that he's in. However, it's now Christmas, a time skip has happened, he's been alone working on that shit, with that interaction with Morty being the only, like, the most recent interaction with Morty in his memory, and that has been festering, which is why he blew up after the fact later, because that interaction was his entire perception of Morty being his most recent memory. So it was just a resentment that continued to build, even though he wasn't that angry in the moment.
Right, because here's the thing that is important to consider. It's like Rickbot, Robo Rick. Like, it's made abundantly clear that the way Rickbot's thought processes work is still very much a part of actual Rick's thought process. Like, it's made very clear that we're meant to take it as how Robo Rick thinks and sees everything and sees everyone is very much still a core part of Rick. So it is still like,
it's just 22% nicer.
Yeah, so we are like meant to take it as, you know, Robo Rick is still an extension of Rick, and because of that, we don't necessarily need to actually trust what it is Rick is blowing up about. It's just like, again, they tried to cram it too much of all this Star Wars shit that, like, what they were actually trying to explore with the character didn't get enough room to breathe, and because of that, it's not abundantly clear and feels super jumbled.
It's mostly clear to me, but it only really gained proper clarity on second watch through, particularly when I was able to refresh myself of the previous episode.
Yeah,
which, to be fair, can be said to the show's credit, because if you're picking up more things on a second watch through, that usually means that the foreshadowing and hints left along the way is good, and it's a fundamentally well-structured story. However, in this case, I think it more just means that not enough time was dedicated to things that the time should have been dedicated to, because, listen, the Star Wars shit was funny, I liked it, didn't need to be 90% of the episode. I'll agree with you there, George.
Yeah, like here's the thing. The same thing happened with Night Family, didn't it? Well, like, we watched it the first time, thought it was just kind of meh, but then we rewatched it in preparation for our stream, and we ended up really liking it. Like, episodes can benefit from rewatch. It's just, if anything, the opposite has happened here, where I've rewatched it.
Yeah, like this is the dark side, pun definitely intended, of that concept being put into play.
Where do you guys think this stacks up against the other, like, season finales throughout the first 5 seasons?
Weakest, except maybe Series 5.
Interesting. Okay, wait. So season 5 finale ranks really low for you, Jay?
Yes.
Interessante.
I remember watching it once thinking, ugh, and then never thinking about it again.
I remember being really excited during, like, at the very least, the second half of it, but even the second half of it was really bogged down by just Rick being super self-aware about everything. So I agree with that take. Like, that was a pretty big L. I'd call this second weakest.
What's your first weakest? I think we talked about this before, but I can't remember.
I'm in agreement with Jay. I think it literally is just season 5, which is weird because, like, that had the most hype behind it, but it was just a big disappointment.
Yeah, I do. If anything, I actually think this finale is the weakest, which is a real shame to say, because I mean, it's a shame to say, because I mean, you and me, Si, we've been really enjoying this season, haven't we?
This has been a really good season so far, and the finale it's not that finale, pal.
Nah, it just. It's such a shame, because again, the show's never going to be on par with seasons 1 and 2 again. Like, it's just never going to happen. Like, we've kind of accepted the new status quo of Rick and Morty, and like how when it gets good, it does get really good, and when it does get bad, it's just like whatever, can brush it off, it's fine. But like, it's a shame to have been so enthusiastic about a new season, especially with how like people liking Rick and Morty has been really dwindling over the last couple of years. to get on the almost vindication of really enjoying the new
Mhm.
season, to then get to the finale and have it just end with a really wet fart. It really is a shame.
Yeah. Also, before we continue, I would just like to point out what Schick said, this most recent message. Not all blades have handles that are wider than the blade. I am aware of this, Schick. However, canonically, look at any lightsaber in any fucking Star Wars movie, and you will see
Yeah.
that obviously the fucking blade of the lightsaber is just a little bit smaller than the fucking handle of the lightsaber because the light is coming out of the saber like
Okay.
a fucking flashlight. That's how it
But-
fucking works.
Does the lightsaber's area of effect go past the visible blade? Because it is like just massive, like projecting heat outwards.
Probably, but also probably not enough to continue to melt the rock that it's going. I don't know. They ask the fucking special effects guy that decides when the dude disappears from his clothes.
Well, the
I
real
don't
question is
fucking
like, why does air just replace the rock it's melted? Surely it would just be in a pool of molten rock and then be destroyed.
What, around
Yeah.
the core of the Earth? No, yeah.
Yes, no,
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Like, the core is, like, surrounded by, like, fucking molten lava. Like, the mantle of the Earth is a thing, whereas this is, like, it does Rick and Morty adhere to Hollow Earth theory? Is that
Yes.
is that the conclusion?
Well, no, like,
that we
I
want to
think-
come to?
Okay, I think in the Clone Wars, right, I believe that there have been instances of lightsaber handles being destroyed, right? And they don't explode, right? You can remove the kyber crystal because that's the valuable part of the lightsaber, because the actual technology is replaceable. It's not that expensive. The kyber crystal is what's expensive. However, that's all out the fucking window because this is just an approximation of what a lightsaber would be like. It's Rick's best attempt at recreating a lightsaber because lightsabers aren't real in the fictional universe that is also not real of Rick and
They are
Morty.
now,
but
'cause
in-
Rick made them real.
Well, no, that's the thing. Like, lightsabers... Okay.
Well, not even that. The president had a bunch of robots with lightsabers in them, so, like, even...
No, you're misunderstanding. You're misunderstanding, George. Kyber crystals aren't real. Okay? Right? Like, fucking... In the... This is so stupid. In the fictional universe of Rick and Morty, Star Wars is not real. Now, the idea of a lightsaber is real, but lightsabers are not real. Rick just invented something that works like a lightsaber and called it a lightsaber for simplicity's sake. But that lightsaber is not made of the same stuff as the lightsabers in Star Wars because the lightsabers in Star Wars are not real.
Just hear you banging on your desk with each syllable.
Gently as to not wake anyone.
Of course.
So-
More lightly thumping on your desk.
So, if the lightsabers are not real, and Rick invented a pseudo lightsaber, then we don't fucking know how it works.
Well, we can
All we know
assume-
is it kind of looks like a lightsaber.
Well, we can assume it's meant to ape the real thing. Well, say the real thing as closely as possible. So basically,
No, we
like,
can't
emulate
because that
lightsaber.
wouldn't be what's important to Morty. All that's important to Morty is that it walks like a lightsaber, talks like a lightsaber, and looks like a lightsaber. It doesn't need to use kyber crystals or the closest thing to kyber crystals.
Well, the question
It doesn't need to
is-
operate by the same rules as long as the rules don't operate on the. I don't.
Well, I mean, the thing
I'm
is,
gonna have
like,
I'm gonna have a stroke.
well, the logic of Rick and Morty is pretty safe to assume, like, from how big and infinite the multiverse is, that something that essentially are those crystals does exist out there somewhere, and that's probably what Rick used.
Not necessarily. Yes, they probably exist somewhere, but that does not necessarily mean that would be what Rick would choose to do, because that's probably more difficult to acquire than just inventing his own version of it with the materials that he would have access to more readily.
Nah, I think it's pretty safe to assume that something that along those lines exists out there somewhere, and Rick would have found it. But the question is, if we do assume that, you guys know Star Wars
It's a
more than I
big
do,
assumption.
canonically, would a lightsaber be destroyed if it was dropped in lava?
Yeah.
Yes. I don't think the kyber I'm not educated enough on this, but I don't think the kyber crystal would be destroyed, so you could recover it and make another one, thereby repairing the lightsaber. But I think if you dropped the lightsaber in the lava, the handle, which is where all the tech is, would sustain enough damage that you would no longer be able to summon the actual saber part of the lightsaber, the actual the blade, if you could call it that, right? The light blade of the lightsaber. You would no longer be able to turn that on because the handle, which is the contraption, would have sustained too much damage. But you would be able to recover the important part and make another one. Because I think kyber crystals are pseudo indestructible. I think.
Not that it matters anyway, because apparently in this episode, like, there's no mantle. It's just ultra thick layer of crust, then cave, and then core. Apparently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, the fact that aspect of the episode is what we latched onto just says
perfectly fucking vertical.
I think if anything, we're probably ready to wrap this up. Is there anything else anybody wants to say about episode 10 before we do?
It was boring.
Boring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit. It had its moments. It definitely had its moments. My closing remarks regarding episode 10. Yo, I want to watch the prequels.
Now we got Analyze Piss to watch after this. Remember?
True,
yes.
True. Analyze Piss.
I hate episode. Sorry.
That is a much more important task than anything any of us could do.
I hate episode 10 because it led to me seeing its existence led to me seeing screenshots of it posted by Rick X Morty shipping accounts on Twitter.
You know what? Yeah, valid enough reason. I don't really have anything else to add other than just like it was a crummy finale and a crummy episode, and I really resent that because I've been really enjoying season 6 up until this point. It's been a real breath of fresh air for me. So, and like obviously it's the first season that I've done any significant YouTube content for. So for it to end on such a damp squib like that is honestly really upsetting, and it's going to make me resent the episode. But either way, we did it. We streamed and reviewed every single episode. We made the commitment. We got through it, and we have done it. Zarek, are you going to be down to sometime soon do that summary stream and maybe do some rankings in that stream at some point soon?
Yeah, why the fuck not?
May as well. I think it'll be.
If I survive the overdose that I am currently experiencing, I am down to do anything, sweetheart.
Hell yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, in that case, I think we can wrap this up here. Thanks to the 4 people who tuned in. We always appreciate when that happens. And to the people who watch on after the fact this being uploaded, we appreciate you too. You're very sexy, so long as you are over 18. Let me make that clear. Zarek, thanks for obviously coming back for doing this as usual throughout the whole series. And Jay, thank you for coming back and being our special guest. A lot of fun.
Been a pleasure.
Always. And we're now going to go and watch Analyze Piss, because Jay hasn't seen it, and that is an absolute crime.
Before we do, though, I'm going to have to go do something appropriate thematically.
That's fine. I'm also fucking starving. I need to get some food. I'm so hungry. All right.
I'm just going to drink some water, because
that's probably the best thing for you. Yeah.
I need to flush the 60 ounces of coffee from my system.
It was coffee that you used, not even like energy drinks. Damn, Jesus, that's
just
coffee.
I literally just brewed the entire fucking pot because I knew I would have to stay awake for a stupid amount of time in order to make this work. And you know what? I made it work, George. So don't you question my life choices.
I'm absolutely not. This was a really fruitful stream. I had an awesome time, and I hope everyone else had an awesome time listening in, because I had an awesome time recording it with y'all.
It had to be done.
Right.
Very fun.
Thanks so much, everyone. You guys enjoy the rest of your evening. We're definitely going to enjoy ours, and we will see you very soon, probably. Goodbye.
Bye.